that will probably.
So we are all introducing ourselves. We've got Michael Rossoff here with us. Robin, if you want to unmute yourself, and then Brian.
Hi, I'm Robin, Robin Brewer Toner, and I live in Canada. I have been studying macrobiotics for a couple of years now, but I've been familiar with it because my grandmother was macrobiotic. The reason I'm doing this challenge is because I received your email and I thought it would be a great opportunity. I have no expectations. So far I have, it's 1 o'clock roughly here in Canada. So it's only been a few hours and I'm panicking a little bit, I have to admit.
And Brian. Brian, if you can, yeah, very good, and unmute.
Okay,
and if you want to come closer.
Okay,
Yeah, we hear you. We hear you.
Okay. I'm Brian Smith. I live in Cleveland, Ohio, in the United States. I have been taking macrobiotic cooking classes since about 2013 with a practitioner here in Cleveland by the name of Francois Roland. And I recently completed level 3 macrobiotics with Ed Esco. I'm finally getting to the point where I feel like I can tell when my body needs more yin or more yang. And so I'm interested in taking this 10-day fast to kind of reset my tastes and to see where it takes me.
And David, are you able to unmute?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, great. All right, David Snieckus. I'll do my limerick. David Snieckus, cooking.
No limericks, David. We're kind of moving along. We don't see you at all.
Along. Okay, good. Very good. I started macrobiotics 1977 when the book of macrobiotics came out. Went to the Kushi Institute. Met Michael Rossoff there at 3rd Mid-Atlantic. Been macrobiotics and off-ish for those 44 years. Last 18 kind of just slipped a little bit and doing cooking now called like a reset called revendication. I want to challenge myself. In like mind, just before Thanksgiving, I was wanting to go on a diet myself, and the challenge that you put out, and I'm on it.
Okay. So David, Michael Rossoff, do you want to introduce yourself and begin?
Okay. Should I talk briefly or a little longer about everything?
The time is yours. Whatever you would like.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I guess I applaud you for being zany or crazy or high risk takers or not. I've been around in macrobiotics since 1969, and I've seen a lot, been through a lot, and of course, therefore, have a lot of understanding and opinions about everything. I wanted you to know that when I started macrobiotics, I lived in Boston in one of the study houses that were there around Michio Kushi and Aveline Kushi. And another fellow there and I decided to do the diet number 7. And so we did it for 10 days, and it was a great experience. Of course, I was 25 years old then, and not 76 that I am now, but, and I learned a lot from it. And I want to briefly share some of that in my 8 points. I want to quickly tell you that I think are important for your understanding of what you're embarking on. Because I would say the number one thing I got from it was a lot of clarity, a lot of inner calm, a lot of peacefulness. That's the front. The back, macrobiotics, we talk about front and back. There's always pros and cons to what we do in life. And the back was at a minimum, feeling more weakness, maybe more spacey, and less get up and go. But also feeling, I would call it superiority or exclusivity. When you exclude tens of thousands of foods and choose to only eat one, firstly, your choice better be really good. And secondly, you're excluding so much that it can make an exclusive mind, in that we start to think we're more superior, we're more clear, we really are more in tune with the universe than everyone else running around here and there. So I think that's a front and back issue. I also want to talk about George Ohsawa for a minute. And I recommend everyone reads something of his just to get the intensity. And there we go. Zen macrobiotics is certainly a great one. He was an adventurer, and he would throw out a lot of great ideas or wild ideas. And he was much more of a philosopher. He was not a healer. He was not involved in trying to make this a formal diet that it has become. And he was then, back in the 40s and 50s and 60s, much more seeing the West as gluttonous with excess and too much animal food, too much dairy food, too much soft drinks, and excesses of all sorts. And so he was recommending kind of the opposite. Let's get really tight with everything. And I think that's his idea of these 10 diets, with diet number 7 being the penultimate one, I would say was a more of a philosophical statement. I really doubt that he was honestly recommending people do this as a pure lifestyle. And he knew that the priest, Shinto priest and others, Taoist priest in China, would definitely have fasting and very strict diets, as the West has done, more as religious or spiritual. And I think that is a core point here. You really have to have some higher level of consciousness to seek here to really make a fast work. For one of you who said that she's got pneumonia and wanting to try and clear it, I'm cautious about that purpose. I think the more unhealthy we are, the more you're going to not exacerbate the unhealthiness, but cause more sudden detox. And that's another backside. You may get a lot of clarity, but you may get detoxification. Because what are we doing when we eat diet number 7? It's something like we start to yangize ourselves. We start to contract. And like a sponge, every cell gets contracted. And if you do it too strongly or too, and I'll define what I mean by that, you risk suddenly flooding your bloodstream with a lot of held in toxins. And that is not great experience or purpose. We want it to be more, at best, spiritual, enlightening, inspiring experience. So I warn you, if you are feeling weak or disoriented or things like that, you should definitely stop. I also want to say that I think that diet number 7 was never about brown rice. It was about eating grains. So I strongly recommend, and Ganat can disagree, and I'm fine with that, that that you eat not just brown rice, but other grains like millet and quinoa and barley. It's going to make the experience much smoother. You're not yang-geising yourself nearly as much. Furthermore, I think the grains should be made more soft, cooked more soft. Now, another way not to over yang-geise yourself too much. And thirdly, don't over salt. That's the only real seasoning you will have if you do it a la George Ohsawa's number 7. And it's very easy to overdo salt. And that you need salt in all grains, that's without question. So I recommend you vary the type of salt, like use umeboshi sometimes as your salt, especially, and good quality sea salt. Please don't forget to chew well and eat often, eat frequently. You shouldn't just eat 3 meals in a day. I'd rather you had smaller, more frequent meals like this. And finally, drink plenty of liquid, whether that's tea or water. Then some of you may be on medications, and I think you have to be very cautious. You're not throwing everything out. You risk really putting your body into a tailspin. So if you're on different medicines, whether it's blood pressure medicine or whatever else, pay close attention, but do not stop them. You may find that you can reduce it depending what it is and who you are and how you do, but absolutely do not stop it. My next point is get outside and be in nature. I mean, you're choosing, I should say, to have an enlightening experience at best. Then that enlightenment is part of our natural wonder of life. And that means more connection with nature. So please go out into the parks or the woods and experience more sense of nature. And finally, you may get to this great plateau where you just feel, I could do this forever. I felt that when I did it. Like, boy, this isn't so bad. But after you get over the first few days, a little bumpy and such, and then you think you can do it. Well, don't do it forever. And the biggest problem, in my opinion, is not getting to do it, but coming off of the fast. This is where most people make a lot of mistakes. Your yin and yang should tell you what the mistake is going to be, because the fast is principally yang. And a lot of people are going to dive into strong, sugary yin or high fat foods, because those are the two things you're depriving your body of. So those are my key points. And I think you shouldn't be hard-headed about it. If things feel really off, stop or loosen it. Start introducing some vegetables and some beans or other protein if you really feel it's not working well for you. I do get concerned with someone who's already lost a bunch of weight in starting macrobiotics and then doing this and losing more weight. That is not a great place to be. So be cautious is really what I'm saying. Pay attention to your body, pay attention to your mind, and be realistic of what's working and what's not. And I wish you the best in your great adventure. Okay, good night. Is that worthwhile, helpful?
That was that was very good. And now as a group, we're going to have to decide. Our original instructions were much younger approach very little liquid, Gomasio 1 to 14, more kind of Ohsawa warrior mode. So
Right.
we, or each of us, perhaps, can decide how we want to, or what's right for us to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm not counteracting your original intention, but I am saying that that there's another way to approach it that can be very make it smoother and less
Right.
stressful.
So
'Cause
could we say if we do a very strict diet, we're going to have the strongest results, and maybe too strong?
Maybe. Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Like I did a lot of reading in the 2 days before I started this about number 7 diet, and people have done it in different ways. So I read one man who would allow himself up to a tablespoon of tahina and up to a tablespoon of oil a day if he felt that he needed it. So I have a couple of days I had 2 teaspoons of tahina, and it really helped me a lot. So I'm thinking that would help me. Plus I eat at least 6 meals a day, 6 bowls.
Right.
I'm eating a lot of rice. So is that what you're saying, like adapt it, like gentle little, or is that? Because I
Yes.
feel that it's good for me. I feel that I can feel the difference. And I'm just saying this to people because I was just for people who's starting it, I was very spacey. I remember day 2 when I went out for my walk, I was a little scared to walk because I didn't feel so stable. So I went really slowly, but I walk every day. So I'm used to walking. Went really slowly and I did a walk, but it took me until day 5. Today's the first day I felt like myself again. But so I'm glad that I went through it, that to get to this place, I wouldn't have known that that was possible.
If you, I'll respond if you like and say that I think that was smart to be a little more flexible, and the oil is a much better choice, or protein, fats, a much better choice than sugary, sweet things, even fruit. At that time is really advisable, but some protein with oil. But that's so you're adapting it for your needs. And I remind everyone that this diet number 7, George Ohsawa knew Japanese people very well, of course. And when he would say to his students, you must do this and this and this, and they'd say, aso, and go off and do what they felt was right for them. They didn't, even though they said yes, they didn't really do it 100%. And so we need to realize that Ohsawa was trying to say things boldly and shockingly to a different age, the 1950s and 60s, and trying to shock people and challenge them, but did he really expect people to do it? I wonder. We don't fully know. But us Americans or Westerners, you know, are willing to dive in and try these things out anyway. So if that's in your spirit to do this, then please go ahead, but maybe slight adaptations, like she just said, could really save the day or smooth your journey.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think I also would like to, I'm sorry, I really want to underscore though that don't eat too much salt, because I don't have back pain, and I had terrible back pain from day 2 on. It wakes me up at night, and I think it's so much gamasio the first few days, and now I've cut it way back. So and I noticed doing yoga also, which I've been doing for over 50 years. I'm 67. I've been doing it since I was 16. I noticed that my body can't do what it used to do, like last week. So, and I think it's because of all the young. So just wanted to,
Good.
other people's benefit.
Yeah.
So how do pickles play into this? Because they're very salty. And
Just
you had
have a
us make
little.
pickles. How much is a tiny bit? One piece a day? I mean, I don't understand.
I would say, so each form of salt has different benefits. The reason I mentioned umeboshi, plum or paste, is because it is a pickle. And it's sour. It has a different energy, plus the salt, and plus a minor sweetness, because umeboshi is a immature fruit. So it covers a lot of bases, and it's a very good for neutralizing imbalanced acidity in the body. So in that sense, I think it's a good one. But a little pickle, like cucumber or sauerkraut, they are a vegetable. That means something more yin that's been pickled to make it something more yang, but there's still the yin there. So I think a little pickle could be an obvious choice, but no matter what, all grains must be cooked with some salt. Okay.
I had a question about the pickles as well. I know we were recommended to just have tamari pickles and umeboshi. And I was wondering, I guess, well, one, why those two? And then also I make Nukadoko rice bran pickles, and I was wondering if those would be acceptable or if those would be too young or.
No, that's good. That's good. I've never heard of tamari vegetable pickle. Is that what you said?
Shoyu, yeah. It's about a third shoyu, 2/3 water, and pickled for a day.
Of what?
Any root vegetable, carrot. We did kohlrabi, radish, daikon.
I see. Okay. Yeah. It could be more yang. It could be. I think tamari is a more yang salt source because of its original nature. It's coming from the miso production in the first place. And that's why I think umeboshi is a little more diverse in its energetics. But whatever you like, just like was said, watch out for getting too salty.
Mm-hmm.
And that's partly why I recommend cooking some of the grain more soft, which is not, or having other grain than rice. A millet, I think, is a very balancing, harmonious grain, and you should at least experiment with it.
Michael, to come back to the pickles, how much pickles? And when we talk about eating pickles with the rice, I mean, is it like 2 pieces, 4 pieces? What?
The challenge is that we salt in any form, pickle, gomasio, anything, is easily addictive. In other words, hard to just have one, and you want another and another and another, and suddenly you're over salting. And so try less than more, but it is providing some other source of energy and can benefit digestion, whichever pickle form you choose.
Would it be acceptable, Michael, to use sauerkraut?
Yes, I'm an advocate of sauerkraut.
And I could rinse it maybe?
Every day. It's
okay.
It's an elixir to me.
Thank you.
Sure.
I'd like to ask something about vitamins and also water intake. We were advised to take up to 3 cups of liquid, and you mentioned drink plenty, and those are quite contradictory. So can you clarify what What would be the rationale for each?
Right. The rationale for 3 cups only, I'll let the Ganat or the spirit of George Ohsawa answer that one. But I think there's should I speak again?
Is that one of us with background noise? You know it? Okay, if you can mute yourself. Go ahead, Michael.
All right. So now I've lost my train of thought there. What?
About the,
So
Yes.
vitamins, yes, no, and liquids, how much, pros and
Here's-
cons.
Macrobiotics for decades since I began had this kind of unspoken or sometimes spoken view that when you're doing macrobiotics, you shouldn't drink much liquid because you're getting grains and beans and vegetables with plenty of liquid already in it. But that was, in my opinion, in retrospect, I did that for many years. It's a mistake. It's a foolish, simple mistake. Foolish because the body needs it, and a lot of people are repressing their need for more fluid. And secondly, it is trying to hold to some rigid standard that's been put out and not individualized. Basically, we should be intuitive about our liquid intake, no matter what you eat. And most people are not being, in the world, are not being very intuitive. They're just drinking all kinds of things and having way too much salt and all of this. But here, I think the message should be, drink when you're thirsty. There's nothing wrong with it. And another way to know if you need more liquid is based on urination and quality.
I've been taught if it's white, it's all right. So the clearer
Right.
the urine, the better.
The darker the urine, the more lack of fluid, and it's a high risk. That means that for whatever reason, and even if you think you're taking in plenty of fluid and you still have very dark urine, you still need more, because that could be part of a detox, and all the more reason to help the kidneys. The only way the body can detox are 4 ways: through kidney function, through liver function, through lung function, and through skin. Those are the principal ways our bodies discharge toxins or excesses. And bowels, but bowels just doesn't quite count for liquid. I should include bowels, so that would be another. Anyway, I encourage people not to be too limiting of their liquid, of all things.
And vitamins, like supplements, the ones I take regularly, B12, all purpose, just balanced. Should I keep or stop?
No, if you're doing vitamins, not Western meds, if you're doing vitamins and you want to do this diet number 7 a little more thoroughly, then don't take vitamins. For 1 week, your body's not going to miss anything for sure.
Michael, can you give us some tips on how you chew for 100 chews? Because like other people, I can't get past 50.
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite understand what you said.
Sorry.
she's asking for tips on how to become a good chewer.
How say again, Ganat, how to become
How to chew well.
How to chew well. Oh, that's a great question, actually. Count your chews. Don't be watching television or reading while you're eating. Now, I'm as guilty of those as probably many of you. But if you're doing this as a really spiritual development experience, then make it that. And part of that is be with the food, taste it, experience it. That's why you're chewing also. And even better, before you even start to eat, smell the food, the aroma, and eat that too. Experience that. That stimulates salivation, that stimulates digestive juices before you even start chewing. Chew well means count your chews. And how many? I would say whatever number of chews you do nowadays, double it.
Mhm.
And you'll have a much better experience and better digestion and assimilation, which is really what it's about. It's not what you eat that counts, it's what you assimilate that counts, both nutritionally and energetically. That's all the more reason to sit when you eat, make this an experience of meaning, and listen to some music or something while you're eating is fine. But don't be distracted from your chewing and the experience of the food.
May I ask a question?
Sorry.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Carol, yes. I don't know, this is how I do it. I learned it from Lino. I count my chews and I watch the second hand. And so I see how many chews it takes me for like 2 seconds. And then I write down a goal, a spiritual goal. And then instead of counting my chews, I just look at the second hand and I read the goal to myself while I'm chewing. What do you think of that?
Maybe it's okay if that works for you, but I want to stress it's the number of chews that count, because you're starting the process of digestion. Let's be clear. And if you're just swallowing food unchewed well, then it puts a lot more strain on the stomach and pancreas in particular.
Well, I chew 100 times. I chew 100 times each mouthful.
But I'm also saying you can chew just because we're chewing more or more consciously doesn't mean you have to chew slowly. You can chew fast.
Okay.
As well. All right. It's benefiting digestion either way. It doesn't have an hour to eat a bowl of rice.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Because yeah, I do too long and I'm here for a long time. And then I don't do it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sure. Now, I'll speak because no one's asking anything, that if you start having some intense symptoms like irregular heartbeats or shortness of breath or tingling and numbness or dizziness and lightheadedness, you better start to back off pretty quick of how intense you're doing it. There's no reason to risk your stability for this experience. That's why when I did it when I was 25, that's one thing. When you're young and vital, it's easy, even if the first couple of days feel a little shaky. But when you're older or have more underlying conditions, that's another story. And so I am more cautious about how long you stay with it. So trust your body's messages. If your body is saying, whoa, don't go too far off the beaten track, then it's okay to segue to your regular eating. Okay.
Do you want to talk a little bit more about the segue?
Okay. So when you come off of the fast, I think and I'm sorry, I don't remember most anyone's name here, but who was the person? Give me a moment to at least acknowledge her. Kathy, I think it was, who is already doing the diet on day 5 now.
That's Ruth. That's
Pardon?
Ruth. Ruth.
Ruth. Oh, sorry. See, I'm not getting my notes even well. Anyway,
Okay.
I think the point, yeah, is your name Ruth?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay,
It's
Ruth.
okay.
I think what happens when you come off of it is to do what you started to do, which is to start increasing protein or fats. And let me clarify, the body only gets energy. Ultimately, no matter what we eat, all foods have to be broken down into two forms. And that is carbohydrates, simple carbohydrates, brown rice or other grains, or complex carbohydrates that through digestion break down into simple carbohydrate. And then we can use that for energy and vitality and healing. Or we use fats or oils. All protein contains fats. In other words, fat does not exist by itself. Fat only is combined in nature in a protein complement. And that means whether it's meat and its fats or it's sesame seeds, high protein, the tahini, it has fat. Or your olive oil comes from olive seed, which is high protein. I'm saying eat beans, soybeans, tofu, or tempeh all have fats. And so we are much better to segue or transition our diet to more protein and therefore fats or oils first, and not jump into too much strong sugary things first when you're coming off the diet.
So you're saying that before, because what I had read was to go to just plain miso soup for a day or two, and then miso soup with vegetables, and then after a couple of days of that. So yeah, I'm glad that you're weighing in here.
Yeah, but also, well, miso is another form of protein. Let's be clear. It is a pre-digested protein. All right, it's already totally digested. And that's good, but why not with vegetables too? I mean, you've only done this for what, 7 or 10 days? Haven't done this for a year. I think you can handle vegetables immediately.
Okay.
And protein, and start with miso, that's a very good idea. But with some vegetables, and then with some tofu in it, and then then you should be able to segue to other protein foods that are not hard to digest. So whether that's for you more tofu or more beans, but a lot of nut butters can make it very hard to digest. So I do caution eating too much nut butter coming off of a fast, because it's just going to tighten liver gallbladder very quickly to digest that concentrated oils.
So maybe I should just be having a couple of grains right now of natto or something instead of the tahina.
No, you can experiment with that. I think you personally, having already lost a lot of weight, I would say you probably will benefit more with the tahini.
Okay, because I don't want to monopolize too much, but I think that part of my problems may be because of
sorry, you keep that.
like eating so many vegetables and beans, and I had grains, but I didn't have a huge amount of grains every day. And I'm thinking that my diet needs to be a little different, even though I was macrobiotic, but maybe that's why I need a consultation. So, but.
Well, I think your question is fine. Macrobiotics from day one when I started in '69, it was way over the top on grains, and especially only brown rice. And I think that's why I'm trying to say broadening your definition of grain is number one thing to do. Number
Okay.
two is when you're segueing out of this dietary experience or an experiment, is to not make grains such a big proportion of your total eating.
Oh,
Or like you were
okay.
doing. I don't know what proportion, but maybe it was 30%, and then beans and vegetables and seaweed and other things.
Mhm.
The risk of macrobiotics in general is eating too strict, not eating too wide, whatever that means. Too strict is once again challenging your weakest link internally, okay? For some people that might be heart, or it might be kidney, or it might be lungs. It could be anywhere. But when you eat too strict, you're challenging that weakest link. And you may say, well, won't it make it stronger? And yes, it could. But it depends on your total condition when you start. It's like musical chairs. Did you ever do that when you were young?
Yeah.
And suddenly everyone has to sit down, but one is not going to. It's like suddenly the music stops. And what your condition is when you start this is where your body's going to have to respond during these days. And maybe you got the chair and everything is going to go smooth, but maybe you didn't get the chair. You don't really know. I'm not trying to dissuade anybody or frighten anybody, but I think the older we are and the more underlying conditions there are, the more you want to pay very close attention to your body messages. Trust your body messages over your mind's will to do it no matter what. That's my real.
Thank you. No, everything that you said is so helpful. Really,
Okay.
I think we're all appreciating it, and it's very rich, and it does resonate. That it makes a lot of sense that when we're too rigid, then we're rigid in our mind as well as our body, and of course it's going to affect. So, thank you.
Right. You're welcome.
Thanks. Okay. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So any other thoughts or questions from everybody?
I do have a question about the liquids. Is it better, especially on this particular diet, to have the liquids with your rice while you're eating the rice? Or if we maybe have 5 or 6 portions of rice throughout the day, that we then have the liquid between those times?
Generally, I recommend people not drink during a meal. It's fine to drink before a meal, it's fine to drink, and definitely important to drink after a meal. And because drinking after a meal is informing the digestive organs, especially stomach first and pancreas second, that you're done eating. And it can start turning down the juices of stomach acid, pancreas enzymes, all those good things. So it's good to drink some liquid after the meal. How much is totally up to you. It's really, and what, if you want water or herbal teas or kukicha, that's up to you totally.
Okay, thank you.
And then drink between meals whenever you're thirsty. Absolutely. Good. Well, I want to wish everybody the very best, and I hope to find out about your experiences afterward, and I'm sure Ganat will let me know. And all the power to you all.
Okay then. Michael, thank you so very
Michael.
much.
Sure.
You.
Hey, David.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Welcome. Thank you.
thank you.
Feel
All
I
right.
could breathe easier.
Good.
All right.
All right. I wish you all the best and bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Michael, thank
Thank
you.
you.